Oh, hey, am I on? Am I on? Testing, testing. Oh my goodness. I'm gonna have to hold it. I'm just gonna have to hold this today, I think. Just like that. Hey, everybody. Leslie Plazz, Zazoo Plazz, September 17th, 2023. I just cut my hair. Oh man. I found a new tree. This is incredible. Let's see if I'm gonna see if you can get that view. This is my view here in the woods. It's, it doesn't happen often, but it's like every now and then I hit it just right where I get up and I'm running at 6 a.m. and I'm eating breakfast at 7. And I'm out in the woods at like a normal hour, like 11 a.m. And it's beautiful, sunny, cool, September 17th, 2023 here in Connecticut. Every now and then I find the perfect tree. So it's like every now and then, like not normal, but like ideal comes around. And so I don't usually shoot for it, like most people. They're like, oh, I gotta get up. No, because time in the linear fashion is really kind of a myth. And it's getting more and more so. Like when I was growing up. Oh my goodness. I grew up in a very Saturnian household where everything was like, like boot camp. My mother was like a drill sergeant. Well, not so much her, but like in my own head. I was very, disciplined. Well, I still am. But I've learned to relax that. And that's a really good thing. Because now that I've kind of like stopped trying to do everything on a certain time schedule, that opens you up to all kinds of possibilities. So, I just want to lead with that is that, I'm like, don't spread it around. I was normal today. I was eating breakfast at 7 o'clock, same time as my husband. Well, more or less. But usually, see, any of you who are married, who have been married, the best thing is if you have a partner or just live with somebody. If you have a partner who's like opposite you in your habits, right? So if you tend to go into the bathroom at 7 in the morning and you have a spouse who goes in at 6 or 5 or 9, and you're not constantly bumping up against each other everywhere you try to go. Like, what was that comedy routine where or was it All in the Family? Where, Archie Bunker and Meathead, they're trying to go through the door at the same time and they get stuck. I love that. That's such an old physical comedy bit, but I love it. That's me and my husband. We've been married 28 years. It's like we're in the kitchen. We're both going to want to go in the fridge at the same time. And, he's bigger than me. He's a lot bigger than me. So sometimes I'll turn around and I'll head for the fridge and he'll knock me over, Not on purpose, but just like the force of him going to the fridge and me going to the fridge at the same time, if I'm in heels, forget it. That's why over the years we worked out holiday meals where I cook ahead of time and then he's just in there like making the turkey or whatever. Because I refuse to get that kind of, stress embedded in my food. So anyway, so same thing happens with the bathroom, that's why I went to the rolling schedule where he doesn't know when I'm going to be in there. And yet, he just comes out of nowhere, I said, I'm in there first. And then all of a sudden, you know, he's just like, he's just there. He's like, you know, can I just get in and get my clothes? No, no. So there's that. You got to work these things out. And I think what I'm planning is, I'm gonna have my own bathroom somewhere. Let me just put that out there to the universe. I want my own space, my own bathroom. We haven't remodeled our bathroom since 1998. He goes in there last week, he's got paint. I think I told the little story about the realtor coming in our house and saying, what's that? There was like a pencil line going across the top of our bathroom where my husband drew it, where we put the wallpaper strip. Remember in the 90s when people had those like wallpaper toppers? I don't think they do that anymore. But I got so sick of it one day. I just went in there, ripped the damn thing down. So we painted it over, so it's nice now. But he missed a few spots. He just went in and just did the top of the bathroom. And I'm looking, and I see all these little spots down low, because men don't look down there. I'm sitting there. Oh man, he forgot the whole bottom third of the bathroom. I'm not doing it. You can do it. Okay, Sriracha, like Sriracha, like that chili sauce. My son loves that stuff. We're talking about the readings today. Oh, before I get into the readings, I gotta do a little Zazoo Plazz retort. And this is what I call a retort, is something where you respond to something that really bugs you. It's like in the old days, people used to write into the newspaper in the opinion section, before social media, kids. And still today, it's mostly older people sitting down at their typewriter. But, in the old days, people would be concerned citizens, right? And they'd read the newspaper. Imagine that. Now all the newspapers are getting bought out and going, online, and nobody reads anymore, and nobody gives a crap anymore. But in the old days, kids, people used to read the paper. They read. My parents, my parents, they didn't subscribe to the weekly. It was the Hartford Current, because I grew up in the Hartford area, Connecticut. So they would get like the Sunday Current, and because we had a beach house, and during the summer and even throughout the year, they'd go, to the beach house. So, and then we'd have my aunt pick up our mail, when we were at the beach, whatever. So my parents didn't want the newspaper sitting there and everybody knowing that they weren't home. They were like that. So we never got the daily paper, and we occasionally, if I had, because I worked for the local paper, the Journal-Enquirer, which is now pretty much not even in print. Like if you get it in print, they have to put it in the mail, and it's just a mess. But I was writing for them from like 98 to 2010 when they decided to stop hiring a lot of freelancers. I used to do the whole. I used to have articles on the cover of the living section. So I used to do kind of like the soft news, like the fun stuff. But I tackled some decent topics. I used to write about technology, about homes, food. I used to interview local celebrities like magicians, and I'd go and review restaurants, that kind of thing. The stuff that makes life worth living, right? In the living section. And that was the best part of the paper, right? They had the comics and everything. Ooh, there's a little feather. So that was my gig. So when my parents knew I was going to be, my article was going to be, and I'd call them and tell them, and they'd buy like 5 copies of the paper, give them to all their friends. That's what they did when I published my book. They bought like 20 copies, but I never got credit for it because they didn't buy it on Amazon. They bought it through the other, you know. For some reason, I got like 5 cents out of it. But anyway, that's it. That's for the next book. Yeah, Gen X. So, where was I? Oh, yes, the retort. In the old days, people used to, you know, things bothered them. They'd read something in the paper and they'd say, I'm really triggered about this. I'm going to write a letter to the editor. So they'd sit down and they'd collect their thoughts and they'd write an intelligent, somewhat sounding letter, and, you know, saying why they were upset or why they liked a certain. It wasn't always bad. It was, you know, I have to say I really like, you know, this article, and people had thoughtful things to say. They thought through it, and then they sent it in, and then you were hoping that the editor would put it in there, and everybody would see your letter, you know, kind of be a celebrity. So, you know, those were the days. We forget, right? Social media has devolved from, you know, the opinion section of the newspaper to a free-for-all of just regurgitation and, you know, parroting. You know, how many times do you go on a page and you see the same person's, you know, the same comment 30 times? People, can't you think of anything original to say rather than just, oh, I love that movie. Yeah. Okay, but that's not what the report is about. The retort is I was on my favorite group, which is the Gen X group. You know who you are, people, and yeah, which is always excellent. And so the the guy does it. Hey, John. He did a post on Robin Williams, you know, all of his great movies and a, you know, tribute to him. And so I said, oh, I've got to do, you know, I'm going to put together a little tribute of my own. So what does Robin Williams mean to me? And I realized I have, you know, a whole section of my heart dedicated as a little shrine to Robin Williams comedy, because he's, you know, genius. That kind of genius, you know, only comes around once in a while. And he was so inspiring to me. I saw him in person even. You know, so I was doing a little bit about how we saw him in person at Mohegan Sun in 2009. It was his, what was it? Well, Weapons of Self-Destruction tour, where he had the red shoes and he was pacing around back and forth. Brilliant. And a lot of it was just off the cuff, you know, just, you know. But, so I was searching, you know, and I said, oh, Mrs. Doubtfire. I'm searching Mrs. Doubtfire. Come to find out. All right. I'm still seething from this. There's a Mrs. Doubtfire off-Broadway show based on the movie, I say through gritted teeth and clenched fists, showing at the Bushnell Theater here in Hartford, where I've been many times and seen many great shows. But really, you can't come up with an original play. You have to go and take our Gen X movies and put show tunes, and no. So I saw part of the movie and I felt like I was going to throw up. So they put a little preview, you know, and I already know the movie. For your money, for my money, I'm just going to go rent the movie again, watch it, stream it, because that movie, it's my favorite movie of all time, I think. Anyway, okay. There's something clucking over there. Anyway, okay, ran over. Anyway, I'm sure lots of people will go see it and love it, but I won't be one of them because I'm loyal. Stop making over our Gen X movies and ruining them and putting show tunes, and, you know, don't do it. Certain things are sacred, Okay, that's it. All right, Book of Sirach, 24th Sunday. All right, so Sirach was the father of Joshua from the Old Testament. Joshua, and then this Ben Sirach. I'm not Jewish. I just did a little research on this. It's one of the books of wisdom in the Bible. So we can all use some wisdom today, right? Oops. All right, I'm going to take off my sweatshirt, and I'm going to hold this. And so you hang on there, because it's getting hot. Because I got all retorty, and there's ants. Now there's ants on my thing here. So I'm just going to tie this around my waist. See how resourceful we are? I'm just going to tie this around my waist here so I can just, and I'm very hot right now. And I dropped my notebook. All right, there we go. Okay. Yeah, so this Sirach guy, Sirach, basically he's saying, all right, God is kind, slow to anger, and compassionate. Yeah. Basically, don't hold grudges or try to seek revenge, right? Yeah, because it's just going to hurt you more, you know. God says, let it go, right? Let it go. We have to act as kind down here as God is to us. In other words, you know, we all have the spark of God in us, right? And that's how we have to, in other words, you've got to think of your end game. Like, what's the, you know, in the moment, we can feel that, can't we? I can feel so angry about Mrs. Doubtfire being made into a show that I just want to go there and just, you know, yell at whoever's responsible for that, right? I know it's a small thing in the eyes of the world, right? You know, and you're probably out there going, oh, come on, you know. Aren't there bigger things in the world to get upset about? No. Not to me. Because I have my priorities straight. The things, you know, the smallest things are the biggest things. And the biggest things are the smallest things. Anyway, that's a little Zazoo Plazz wisdom. But, you know, you've got to, see, you don't, okay, Romans, no one lives or dies for oneself. This is true. Right? I mean, not to say that, you know, we're not all alone living this, you know, we are living our own experience. Nobody can live our life for us, right? But if we're all living for God's will for us, right? So what we agreed to, it's like we have a, you know, like a contract, you know, like an actor will sign up for a show, you know, and say, oh, I'm going to do so many shows, I'm going to go on tour, I'm going to do so many shows. And then you show up and you play your role and you entertain, right? And you make the people laugh, right? And then when your show is over, then you go and you move on to the next role, the next city, the next job, whatever, the next gig. It's kind of like that. It's like we, you know, we show up here, like we go from city to city and we do our thing that we agreed to, and then we get paid, we get something in return, and then, you see? But we're always doing it, because we're all part of God's touring company, as it were. And I just came up with that. But it kind of makes sense. I'm an entertainment kind of person, you know. I like music, I like the arts, I like literature, beautiful things, birds, nature, dogs. So that's my view of the world. You know, some people have a different view of what's important. But to me, that's what's important. So, you know, and there's nothing more important than living for today. Saying it today, do it today. I mean, do that which, see, for everybody it's different, but for me, you know, I think life is so precious, you know, and that's why I wrote my book when I did, you know, and that's my attitude. So every day I do a little something to advance my dreams. I write a little bit, you know, and before you know it, you got a million, you know. I've been reading about, you know, authors from, you know, ancient times and things like that. And that's how they did it. You know, a lot of them had to support them, you know, you support yourself to survive on the earth. But then you've got to spend that time doing the things that make life worth living, you know, because that's what sustains you really going forward. So, Matthew 18. Oh, it's the 7 and 77 times. 7 is a good number. 7 is an important number in the Bible. I'm a 7. 7's always been a big number for me. 7, like, you know, life path or whatever. Look into numerology. It's helped me a lot. It's, you know, helps you, you know, you have numbers. Gene keys is another one. I just started looking at that, but that's a whole life course thing. I just dibble and dabble and I take a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I don't get too invested in any one thing. If it interests me, I dibble and dabble in it. Add it to my repertoire. Make a one-note notebook for it. Anyway, what's the song of the week? Get to it, lady. Okay. I have featured this group before on the Zazoo Report, but a different song. And today, this is perfect. I looked up, so the book of Sirach is also called Ecclesiastes. And so I thought, oh, Ecclesiastes, if it's the same book that I'm thinking of, is that like turn for every season? You know, there is a purpose and a reason or whatever. That song, that was the bird song that came out the year I was born, 65. Turn, you know, I know that song. But then I started thinking, oh, seasons change, expose. November 87, that was it, just when I turned 22 that came out. It was their 5th single. They were the only female group in the 80s to hit #1, except for Bananarama. So there you go, expose. Oh, and I heard this song, Seasons Change. There's, you know, the girls in the group, and they're in this beautiful beach house, and they're closing it down for the summer. And that was, you know, where they were reminiscing about times they had in the beach house and friends who weren't, you know, friends they've known, and wanting, that desperate longing to be with those people, you know, see them, have it be, you know, how many people on our Gen X site have said this, you know, just a longing to return, longing, just, you know, sacrifice tomorrow, just one more, you know, if you could be here today, that feeling, that, you know, and it's not necessarily those people, it's who you were at that time with those people in that place. It's a longing to reunite with, you know, where we all come from, that divine source, you know, it's a longing to go back to be whole again, to be, just to be, you know, in a more innocent time when, you know, the future seemed unlimited and open. You know, it still is. It's just that we seem to, you know, we found ourselves, you know, caught in some kind of time warp, you know, and there's this longing to return. And that's a human thing, but it seems to be intensified. It got to the Billboard #1, February 20th, 88. So, it's hard to let go. It's hard to let go. I heard that song and the sax chorus just, I almost started crying for that. Just the feeling I get listening to that song. It was a certain time in my life. It's a very poignant, very, very emotional feeling. I guess that's redundant, but when we, it seemed like you sort of knew, or you thought you knew how life was going to go, right? I figured, my parents would keep their beach house, and we'd go there as a family, and we'd enjoy it. And we'd go to the beach, and it would be beautiful, but it didn't happen. I mean, just before the pandemic, my mom kind of got sick, and she didn't want my dad to have to, take care of the house all by himself, and so they just sold it. They never went down there to see the house. They sold it just over the internet, over the phone. And none of us got to go down there, really. My mom got sick and she died, 3 years later. And so my dad is telling me he has these dreams. He says, you and Mom and I driving up the driveway. We go to our beach house, Rhode Island, and we're unpacking. We go in the house and we're, like we always did with my mother's big shopping bag full of clothes and the food and the cooler and, the whole thing. And he said, then we're in the house and he hears a car coming up, because we had a gravel driveway. So anybody comes up the driveway, like, and then my dad would be out there with his rake, after they left, like, trying to get the dents out of the rocks. I'm sure whoever owns a house now does not do that, but it would kill him to see somebody in our house. But he said he has this dream, and he's like, and we looked at each other and like, oh my God, somebody's coming. We're in somebody's house. We don't live here anymore. And then he wakes up, I'm like, I've been having that kind of dream for a long time. But in my dream, it's that house, but it's a different house. And every time I go there, it gets a little bit more built up, looks a little better. There's, rooms I haven't explored there, but it's still our house. He doesn't have that dream, but I have my dream. Anyway, here's the plane. Yeah, so it's worth looking at those dreams sometimes, because they give you messages. What was that? Heard a big crack over there. It's people, I don't know. Yeah, so what was it? What's the other thing I was going to say about that? So it wasn't meant to be. My dad took a drive to try to find some of his old friends that he used to hang out with. He and my mom. And the one lady who was still living there, she's probably, I don't know, in her 80s. She got sick, and then they took her to a rehab place. And, he had to ask all these different people. He had to go to the fruit stand where her son used to work. And it's sad. And he's down there, because he's a silent generation person. He's, old school. He's looking for me. I just go online and stalk people. But he drives down. It's the whole thing for them, that's what living is to my parents' generation. Getting together with people, seeing friends in person, But it just hurts too much. It hurts when you look and you find something that used to be there that's gone. But maybe something better will come and fill its in its place. So you have to take the chance of getting hurt. I'm still not watching that video, and you know, certain things have to remain sacred, and Mrs. Doubtfire is one of them. So I'm just going to say that. And oh, I gotta go. I'm going to make a pork stir fry with broccoli slaw and is it asparagus? No, snow peas, I think. I don't know. I have a few different versions of it, but I think I'm going to make that. Some kind of strange bird. All right, so I'm going to head home and do that. It's actually a little chilly now. All right, that's all for this week. Who's over there? Till next week, Zazoo Plazz signing out. Take care and enjoy the changing seasons.